Hello, booktube. I'm Scott.
I'm Nelle.
We're Gunpowder, Fiction, and Plot. Now, today, we're doing an unhaul.
An unhaul.
You have something like 250 odd books.
270 now.
270 books on you. So let's be realistic. You're probably reading about 70 books a year, right? So that is 4 years worth of books, just under 4 years worth of books you've got there.
Yeah.
And to suggest that you're going to go 4 years without buying books is to, one, not acknowledge that you have a problem, and two,
It's not a problem.
it's not a problem.
It's a delight.
It's only a problem if it causes you misery.
Yeah, it's only a problem if we can't afford it, and we can.
It's only a problem if you can't stop, and you can't. Anyway, we should not make fun of addiction because that is a serious issue. But
Yes.
so what we've done is we'll insert some footage here of us going through your shelves together. Hello, this is Nelle's TBR.
Woo! Let's do it.
Let's do it. Bernardine Evaristo, Mr. Loverman.
Keep.
Jackie K, Trumpet.
Safe.
Confessions of Franny Langdon.
Safe.
Queen.
Safe.
Macy Cole.
Safe.
Original Info.
Safe.
Love Story from the Windows.
Safe.
Being a member of the
Safe. Safe. Crazy. Safe. Safe.
All zero safe.
Yeah.
And more.
Safe.
Simon Jesse. Jimothy.
Make sure that's what we're
Safe. The Flight Chronicles. Western Five.
Safe.
And me.
Safe.
Cranford.
Safe.
The Mandabell Gate by Muriel Sparks.
Ooh, I wanna...
We're going to discuss this one, are we?
Yeah, that's a maybe. It's in danger.
In danger. These are all the books that you are not sure whether you want to keep. You're not definitely getting rid of any of these books.
Some of them I'm definitely getting rid of, but we're going to go through why I'm getting rid of the ones that I'm definitely getting rid of, because we think some of the reasons I'm killing things are interesting, and we're going to talk about the ones that I'm not sure about. I'm going to make a decision. Yeah.
All right. I think there are two big stacks of books that we should probably start with. First of all, we have this huge stack here. This is not everything, but this is the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. Do you want to discuss all of the Stephen King books or just the Dark Tower series?
Okay, so the Dark Tower series is special. I have the entire Dark Tower series, except I have two of one of the books, and I'm missing one of the books. So I have almost the complete set, except for a weird duplicate, and it's all in the same cover. Fantastic. The reason I have these is not because I intended to read them. The reason I have them is because my best friend read them, and then she moved house. And
she didn't want to take a whole bunch of books
that she'd already read with her, so she gifted them to my bookshelf. I'm not sure if I'm ever going to read these. And while I'm calling this an unhaul, I'm not getting rid of these books. These books are going to sit on my shelf, but not on my TBR.
Yeah, so if Kate wants to read them again,
she can have them back. Or if there's someone who wants to borrow them, or someone who wants to read them in sort of the immediate future, they can borrow/have them, depending on who they are and how much I like them.
Are we going to discuss Stephen King being a problematic author or not?
I mean, we can talk about that. But ultimately, I'm a bit beyond Stephen King. It's not really where I am at with my reading right now. Even if the question of whether or not he is problematic wasn't there, I'm not sure that I would have the interest. Certainly not the interest to get through the Dark Tower series.
Now, have you neglected that in May we have a buddy read with Danny of 11/23/63 or whatever the one about the JFK assassination is?
Yeah, I think Stephen King's like that though. Like his work is so varied that to say I'm not interested in any Stephen King books, you're going to be able to find an exception to that rule.
So you're specifically interested in that Stephen King book?
Yes, and specifically in the context of doing it in a buddy read with you and Danny.
Yeah. Okay.
That makes it more interesting to me.
Okay.
And gives me the urge to pick it up, whereas this is long and more than I wanted and no one's reading it with me, so I'm not saying I'll never read it, I'm just saying it's not on my current TBR.
So this is something that you want to keep for maybe a decade, maybe borrowing, maybe giving back to your bestie.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go and put this on the auxiliary...
auxiliary bookshelf.
The auxiliary bookshelf.
The auxiliary bookshelf. One of the auxiliary bookshelves.
where I just found some Charles Dickens that Nell likes.
I don't know what I like.
That's a good one.
I know that I've read.
All right, let's continue with Stephen King. You've got 2 more Kings, 4 Past Midnight and Needful Things.
Yeah, I'm not sure where they came from, and I don't really want to read them.
Yeah, okay. So are we going to unhaul them properly?
Yeah, I'm going to unhaul those. They can go to a home and they'll get read quickly.
Are these both horror
I think so.
novels? I think 4 Past Midnight is definitely a horror novel. I've not actually heard of Needful Things before.
No, I'm pretty sure that's horror too.
Yeah, so we're not actually going to unhaul these today. We're just going to put them in a pile and
But we
unhaul
have-
them later on.
We have an unhaul pile in our hallway.
So let us know if we're unhauling any of King's treasures, or if King is...
I think if you have any ideas about any of the books that we're talking about today, the comments is the place to really discuss. If we're unhauling something and you want it and you're in Australia, chat and we'll post it to you. If you're not in Australia, it probably depends on where you are, but postage is a killer outside our country. I'd have to like
you. All right, now we're going to talk about problematic authors here.
Oh, okay, so I'm going to stack these because if you watch this channel, you'll know that I used to buy books in just like random mixed boxes, like deceased estates that have been unsorted and that sort of thing.
So it's the Belgariad by David Eddings.
Yeah, so I've got, and this random one by David and Lee Eddings. David and Lee Eddings are a husband and wife writing team who have been to jail for child torture. Not reading that shit.
Goodbye. All right, let's go through some other books that maybe not going to cause a stir. We've got 2 books up here.
This is on the pile because I don't know what it is.
Okay.
Like pretty much every book on my TBR I've chosen or it's been gifted to me. I can remember what it's about. I don't know what this is. I think Kate gave this to me, and that makes me want to keep it.
Have a read of it. Have a read of the blurb and decide.
It's called Sin in the Second City. Step into the perfumed parlours of Chicago's Everly Club, the most famous brothel in American history, and the catalyst for a culture war that rocked the nation. Minna and Ada Everly, the 2 sisters who operated the club at the dawn of last century, were unlike other madams. The Everlys made sure their girls died on gourmet food, were examined by an honest physician, and were even tutored in the literature of Balzac. But not everyone appreciated the sisters' attempt to elevate the industry. Progressive era reformers spouting lurid tales of white slavery ignited a furor that shaped America's sexual culture and had repercussions all the way to the White House, even leading to the formation of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. This sounds hellishly interesting.
So, are you saying that there's a madam that taught her prostitutes on the Balzac?
Do you see how he thinks he's funny? I'm keeping this one, even though it allowed you to make that joke.
Even though it allowed me to make that joke. Sorry. No, I'm not sorry.
I know you're not sorry.
I'm not sorry. Margaret Mitchell's only novel, Gone with the Wind.
I'm not keeping this one.
You're not?
No, I'm not.
You've decided.
I have really decided. It's racist.
Is it?
Yes.
Why is it racist?
Because you said the KKK are the good guys.
The KKK are the good guys in
I don't
this
wanna
book
read
at
it.
some point. Let me tell you that the other people, the KKK, are the good guys. They're not fighting any black people. They're fighting the Yanks. Who are the good guys in the Civil War?
The Northerners.
The Northerners. Yeah.
No.
That doesn't. Let me tell you why you should read it.
Okay, tell me why I should read it.
Okay. Do you like novels with strong, kick-ass women?
Yes.
Then you should read this book because there's nobody stronger and more kick-ass than Scarlett O'Hara.
There are a shit ton of novels with strong kick-ass women and no racism.
And no racism. So
all racism examined as it should be.
I find the racism in this book really interesting because it's not overtly strongly racist, but it is reflection of the societal racism of the time. And is that an accuracy, or is Margaret Mitchell putting forward racist thoughts?
No. There's just not enough. There's not enough reason for me to want to read it. Not enough. And it's that fat.
It's
You can keep it if you
I
want.
will keep this one, but you're making a mistake by unholding this book.
I'm not. There's no such thing.
There
There's
is
no such thing. And you know it by your own DNF ethos. That's a good call.
By getting rid of a couple of good books, I understand. I think that this is actually okay. Fine, You've just done it to upset me. If you borrow this in 6 months' time, I'm gonna laugh.
I'm not going to.
Yeah, I've just ensured that you won't.
Like, I mean, I'm legitimately, it's sat there and stared at me for several years, and I've not picked it up, and I've not had the urge to pick it up, because the only reason I wanted to pick it up was to see if it was as racist as people who claim it's racist to say, and to prove it was racist to people who say it's not racist.
Here's the thing, right? Like, Rhett Butler and Scarlett O'Hara, they're a little bit like Kathy and Heathcliff. They're not exactly nice people, except that they're horrible to everybody. So are Kathy and Heathcliff, but they're horrible human beings, and it's based in a time of war, and you get to see the humanity and the bastardliness in them, and it's really quite well done. Also, to say that the KKK was the good guys is to say that there were good guys in this book, and that is not true.
I'll watch the movie.
Don't, the movie's shit.
What's next?
Alright, we've got Muriel Sparks.
Ooh. I've got a little selection that I actually want to read a chapter, and I think this is one of them. I think I want to read a chapter and see what I think.
I know Muriel Sparks, what is it called?
The Mandelbaum Gate. It's gotten quite a bad rap from quite a few people. And this is another one that I never chose this book. It came in a random mixed box. I don't know anything about Muriel Spark. I'm completely unsure about this.
It sounds like the famous one is The Pride of Miss Jean Brodie, which I enjoyed. It wasn't my favourite novel, but I enjoyed it. But look, I think Courtney and Ange said they read it for a book club, and the average rating for the book club was less than 2 stars.
I mean,
I suspect that, and some booktubers don't use that 1 star. Like, for them, 1 star means
offensive.
Was it written in English? Or yeah.
I think I'm gonna. It's a very small pile that I'm gonna read the chapter, but I think I'm gonna read the chapter and make a decision, which I will include at the end of this video.
Murder by Numbers.
British serial sex killers.
Is it a non-fic?
Yeah. John Christie, Ian Brady, Myra Henley, Peter Sutcliffe, Dennis Nelson, Robert Black, Colin Ireland, Fred and Rosemary West. In this powerful and compelling study, author Anna Jagoski examines their childhoods, finds patterns, and offers possible explanations about how that child was transformed into a murderer. In the course of her research, she entered into a long correspondence with convicted serial killer Colin Ireland, who gave a full and frank account of his childhood and later life. His letters are quoted extensively in this text.
That sounds fucked up.
Yeah, that sounds still interesting to me.
Yeah.
I think that's going to stay.
I suspected you would keep that.
I feel like I actually question this one quite regularly because it looks like a trashy thriller on the outside and I never remember what it's about.
You maybe need to break your books into fiction and non-fiction.
Maybe that will help. Or I just need to buy the balloon and read this one to get it off my shelf so I can stop questioning why I have it.
Alright. Hilary Mantel, A Place of Greatest Safety. This was, so last year we were running a real life book club, and this was the book that killed it. And I finished this book, and I'm still bitter that I am the only one to do so.
Yeah,
because I didn't want to.
I didn't pick up. I didn't even start it. So, I'm very unsure about this. It's a huge book, but it's about the French Revolution, which I have a little bit of knowledge about and an interest in.
Tell me, what are you interested in the French Revolution about? Are you interested in the people? Are you interested in Robespierre and all of them lot? Or are you interested in the peasants and them lot?
I mean, I don't think that's an either or question.
Are you interested in how the revolution affected the basic lives of people? Or are you interested in the politics of Robespierre and
yes,
both of them? Okay. Because it only does one of those two things.
Which one?
It only does Robespierre.
So it only talks about the political end of it.
Yeah.
Does it talk about the political end of it as pertaining to the philosophy that they were trying to follow and that sort of thing, or is it all just this happened and this
essentially,
happened?
Mantel has got a whole bunch of quotes that these people have said and put them together in a story with events that have actually happened, and it's like those documentary things that are on TV now where they're fictionalized reenacted documentaries and stuff. This feels like that. It's fiction. It's not non-fiction, but it's what she's doing with Wolf Hall and all of them apparently. But It's just fucking terrible. It's horrible writing. You can't follow anything that's going on. You're not interested in anything. It's the French Revolution, and I was bored.
I love like the idea that the French Revolution is boring is so foreign to me because
it's not.
Because it's not. It's very interesting.
But read this novel. The French Revolution did not take place inside buildings around tables with people talking.
No, it didn't. And I'm gonna unhaul it.
Oh no. Okay, the last one in this stack, there's more stacks. Lee Child, Worth Dying For.
I don't even know what this is. Who the hell is Lee Child?
Isn't she a thriller writer or something?
I think she's a man.
I can Google who Lee Child is.
I'm pretty sure she's a man.
Is it one of their names that could be either gender and they're very... Lee Child is a man. James Dover Grant. Thriller novels. Best known for his Jack Reach novel series.
Well, this is one of those.
And the book follows the adventures of a former American policeman, Jack Reach, who wanders the United States. I'll have to load it a bit more.
But Reacher has done the impossible before. Now in Nebraska, a drunk sits in an empty bar. The phone rings and a woman asks for help. She has been badly beaten by her husband. Excellent. What violence against women is a plot point. 7 men are having dinner in a nearby steakhouse. A stranger shows up and leaves one of them unconscious with a broken nose. No. No.
You're not? Okay, I won't keep looking it up.
Yeah. It's just not my thing. Again, probably got it in a mixed box of books and I've never read it and I've never thrown it out.
Yeah, and one of the things that you hate is like killing a woman or...
To further the plot of a man.
Yeah.
That very much sounds like that's what that sort of book is.
Ursula Le Guin, The Dispossessed. So you hauled this in well, it won't be our last haul video by the time this goes up, but it will be a recent haul video.
I did. I got it for free, which always, takes the decision to get it. But it's like the 7th book in a series.
Yeah.
Which I didn't know when I picked it up.
So do you want to buy the first book in the series and try it, or is the first book in the series The Left Hand of Darkness? Do you want to start with her most famous novel, or?
Oh, can we look that up?
What's the book called?
The Dispossessed.
It's on both Scribd and Audible. I should just look it up on Goodreads. It's number 6 in the Hanish cycle, or the Hainish cycle. Maybe it's the Hainish cycle. Rakano's World, Planet of Exile, City of Illusion. The Left Hand of Darkness is number 4 on that list. Winter's Cycle.
So it's the same series as her most famous book. I think you're right. I think what I'm going to do, rather than unhaul this, I'm going to keep it. I'm going to get the first one in the series.
I think...
And make my decision based on that.
I think that we should put this out to booktube. If you have read The Left Hand of Darkness, it's number 4 in this series. This one's number 6 in that series.
Oh yeah, can I read this? Is it a standalone?
Is it a standalone? Because a lot of sci-fi sort of stuff is based on a world.
Yeah, so I might be able to read this as a standalone.
Because
let me know if I can.
I know a lot of people have read The Left Hand of Darkness. I don't see these other books being talked about on booktube as much. So.
But I would also be happy to start with number 1. So I'm going to keep that until such a time as I've either read number 1 or I've decided to read this as a standalone, and then I'll judge it based on which book I read.
Gabriel Garcia Marquez, Love in the Time of Cholera. Now, this one has been doing the rounds of booktube. This one has got some paedophilia in it, which is why you would like to cull it, isn't it?
Well, you told me that we needed to talk about it, so...
Oh, well, I thought... Have you seen... I think the best video I've seen on this is the one that Melissa at Fully Booked did, where she discusses why she thinks it's so... Fucked up. Essentially, this is marketed as a really good love story, and a love story it is not. It's not a love story, essentially, and if you think it's a love story, that's a little bit problematic, because that makes the main character a stalker, and you are idolizing a stalker when you could draw some other conclusions from it, but Marquez's writing is quite subtle, so whether...
So, Is it from the perspective of the pedophile?
I think, from memory, I think it's third person.
Is the love story presented as a love story?
I think Marquez's style is very matter of fact. I don't think there is much presentation of what is happening.
Is there something other than this love story going on in this book?
Yes.
Is that interesting?
Well, this is the second most famous book of his. That's our dog, by the way.
He's dreaming.
This is not a book that I particularly enjoyed when I read it. Other people enjoyed this book. This is a serious bit of literary fiction. It's got a lot going on. It's very possible that I missed bits that were going on in this novel. Essentially, though, the novel is about a man who falls in love with a woman, and life takes them apart, and like 50 years later, they get back together. And throughout their lives, they are not very nice people. Maybe the woman is alright, I don't really remember too much, but the man is a gross pig. And I believe that Marquez said the man is based upon his father, which could say, like, that's like, it's so fucked up and weird. And whether it's fucked up in a good way or fucked up in a bad way is...
And when we say pedophilia, how young is the child that we're talking about?
I'm not sure, but in the other Marquez book, she was 9. In this Marquez book, I don't know, but Marquez is happy to put a man with a 9-year-old girl. So... that, I believe, is a commentary on what was happening in Colombia at the time. But it's actually, it goes back to that video we had about knowing when you're the target audience and what you know about this and what you need to research before you read. I think
this doesn't feel like a book for me. This feels like, given what we're talking about, the reason I would be reading this is based on its reputation, its clout, and everything you're saying makes me not want to read
this. Yeah, I think whether this is a good book or not, I don't think it is a good Nelle book.
Yeah, I think ultimately I'm unhauling this because the risk is greater than the reward. It is potentially a book that will just upset me. I might love it, but I think the likelihood that I love this is very low.
I would really like you to read Gabriel Garcia Marquez to know if you like Gabriel Garcia Marquez, because that is something that I'm very curious of. But that's not really a reason to read anything.
No.
So we got to unhaul that.
Yes, going.
It's going. The Rosie Project by Graham Simpson. I don't know anything about this one.
This is another one that I hauled because it was free. And one that I'm going to read a chapter of.
I suspect that this one will go down the chapter road as well. The Girl from Munich by Tanya Blanchard.
Yeah, I'm going to read a chapter of that too.
Now, you've had this on your TBR.
Okay, so this is going to fall into the I'm not really unhauling it category, but I'm not going to read it. This and the next book. I have these 2 books because they were on my grandmother's bookshelves. That's why I have them. I have them because I'm the book lover, and when she died, I got all her books, and most of them I've read, and they're in my I've read it pile, but these 2 I've never read because they're not really my kind of books. Bad Hair Days, I'm pretty sure she bought because she died of cancer, and this is about a woman's experience with cancer, and I've just never been able to emotionally bring myself to confront that book. And Sleeping Dogs just doesn't really interest me, but I'm not going to unhaul them because they're just little bits of my nan that I like to have about the house, but I'm never going to read them, so they're coming off my TBR.
Now, this one, The Silent Patient.
This is another one that I'm going to read a chapter of. I was actually interested in reading this, and then Leanne said it's full of fat phobia, so I'm just going to sample a little bit and confirm.
Leanne from Literary Aversion.
Yeah, Leanne, and confirm what Leanne has said. I'm sure she's correct. She's not dim, but everyone's sort of, I guess everyone's limit for that sort of thing is slightly different. I suspect her and I are probably equally intolerant of it, but I'm just going to read a chapter and check. But I suspect this one going to hold after that.
Isn't that horrible? You're essentially giving that a chance because fat phobia is everywhere and you can tolerate a little bit of it.
Yeah, if I didn't read everything that had fat phobia in it, I wouldn't read anything that was written in modern society. Like, it's just, I'd have to lock myself in a cupboard if I was trying to prevent myself from coming up against fat phobia. And that doesn't work.
It's Horrible. Okay, speaking of horrible bigots, John Boyne, weren't we? Should we just start from the start of this because we ran out of space on the computer? So you were really excited about John Boyne because he is a queer author who is writing from not just the queer perspective.
He writes about queer stuff, but also not queer stuff, which is exciting as far as representation goes, because I think that often minority authors don't get the opportunity to write about things other than their minority perspective.
There is an assumption that... I read a Marlon James quote, which is basically there's an assumption that I will write to the black, like I will write about these issues, and
and
it wasn't a Marlon James quote. I'm getting him mixed up because I read a Marlon James quote about something else. But it was a prominent black author saying that I'm kind of expected to write about black issues, and that's not always the only thing we want to write about.
And I think some authors are potentially limited by how publishers see queer people of colour authors.
Yeah.
So I was excited about this, but then it turns out he's a transphobe. Yay!
Yeah.
I want to link in the description the essay that Jen The Librarian has written about John Boyne's other book and how damaging it is to trans people. Because I think that is really important. If you're going to read John Boyne, then you need to read that article, that essay first, so that at least you're reading it critically. But I have no interest in a person who is such a shit person. I'm not reading books from shit people.
And if Jen the Librarian says that they're a transphobe, then
I'm really happy to take her word for it.
Yeah. Mark Daniels' Sleek Bodies. It's about horse racing. Is that enough to get rid of it?
Legitimately, that's it. I got this in a mixed book box, and I kind of made fun of it at the time, and then I was like, I'll give it a chance. I haven't actually given it a chance. It's about horse racing. I'm not interested.
All right. Now, this is an interesting pick. Pride and Prejudice and Zombies.
Yeah, I thought this would be funny. The movie was funny, but I don't want to read it.
Can I say, it's 317 pages, and I know Pride and Prejudice, I know it's a decent length. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but I would be willing to guess high 300 pages, right?
Yeah.
But it's a parody about zombies. It's got no novel value. I think that it should be much shorter.
Yeah, if it was 100 pages, I'd read it.
And we watched the movie, and the movie
was funny.
It has Doctor Who in it. It was enjoyable.
Yeah.
But
I've seen the movie now, and I will never get around to reading this. I just won't.
It is a truth universally acknowledged that a zombie in possession of brains must be in want of more brains.
I mean, it's funny. It's funny, but I'm never going to make time for that. There's always going to be something better to read. Ooh, it's going on Scotty's TBR.
I think I might. I like a little bit of silliness.
I do too, but I don't read enough books.
I might never get to that book.
Yeah.
And I won't be upset if I never get to that book. But I think having it there for when I want something light and silly, I like a little bit of light and silly.
Some of these choices are about prioritization. They're about recognizing that I can't read everything, and that was a whim purchase and not a serious interest.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. But if I were to follow the priorities, I would not be able to match every mood I had, because my priorities would always tend towards serious literature, and actually sometimes I just need a little bit of fluff to give myself a break in between.
I certainly have enough fluff, as you call it, prioritized.
Well, you call it trash, so don't.
Yeah, I love a story. Like, I really love stories, and I have a lot of light fantasy, science fiction.
Yeah.
Young adult stuff that I read if I want something a bit lighter.
It's one of my preferred fluff genres is comedy. So.
Yeah.
Now, let's go on to some more people who are problematic. Half of a Yellow Sun, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, agrees with J.K. Rowling's on her bloody dumb rant.
Hi, Turf.
Now, this one is... I feel a little bit guilty about this one being in the pile because...
Well, it's your fault.
It's my fault. Breast and Eggs by Mayoko... What's her last name? Kawakami. So, let me first of all, let me say, I found a section of this transphobic.
Which is why it's in the questionable
did
part.
not give it a chance to explain it. I had heard from Kat at Biblio Obscura that it was transphobic. Kat had not read it, I don't think. I think the Kat heard it from Jen Campbell. Right. Now, I trust Jen Campbell's opinion and I trust Kat's opinion, and I've read something that's transphobic in it, but I also trust Sean the Bookmaniac's opinion, and Sean loved this book. So, that doesn't mean that Sean couldn't have just missed it. That, like, there's... But I think that it's not as black and white.
I actually suspect that Sean is the kind of reader that can compartmentalise a small amount of...
Well, I mean, I know that Sean he does not like transphobes, and he has no tolerance for them. So, the fact that he has gotten through this novel, and he loves this novel.
Okay.
So I'm just saying that there are conflicting opinions from people that I trust here, and that...
I want to get into spoiler territory to make this decision, and we can either cut this bit out, or we can just put a big spoiler thing up.
Sure.
And you can come back when the spoiler thing goes away, if you haven't read this. What's the transphobic bit? What happens?
There is a scene when they're in like a spa or a bath sort of situation. Not a bath, more like a Turkish spa sort of thing.
Yeah.
There is a trans person, and the main character says, "You're in the wrong part." But it's an internalized monologue of them processing the trans person the trans woman being in with the women.
Right.
And how that made them feel uncomfortable. And that appeared to have nothing to do with what was happening up until then. This was very feminist. This was about a lady, she was she was comparing her breasts and how her breasts made her feel inadequate and how that was stupid, right? And all sorts of issues that...
Okay, and we're specifically talking about a trans woman being in a woman's space. When they processed it, the character that was processing this idea, was the outcome favourable to the trans person, or were they still like that person shouldn't be here?
Well, because it was an internalized monologue.
Yeah.
I don't quite remember what happened, to be 100% honest, but I think that because it was an internalized monologue, nothing ended up happening. It was an internalized monologue. I also think that it's worth noting that this book was written something like 20 years ago, but it has only recently been translated. Not that should make a huge difference.
No, that sounds very much to me like TERF territory. Like
the fact that it's in a bathroom is the thing that really got me to go, no.
The fact that it's about maintaining women's only spaces and it's in a feminist novel makes me feel that it's very likely to be a trans-exclusive radical feminist point of view. So literally a TERF, rather than just a transphobe that we call a TERF because they're a TERF, which makes me not want to read this at all.
What I think it is worthwhile, because I don't want to have my opinion on it, because I DNF'd it, and yes. I don't feel confident that, I don't know what happened later on, I don't know anything else. And I don't feel confident that that is...
I'm really happy on the balance of logic to exclude this. Because of all the context that we have here. And because I feel like feminist fiction is something that I read a bit of, and it's not like... I don't feel like I'm necessarily missing out on a completely unique point of view to avoid this.
Yeah. What I will say, I have asked this before when I put it in our wrap, but, we have different people watching different videos. I would like to say, if you have read this book, do you agree that it is transphobic? Because I was actually really enjoying that book up until that point, and I would be willing to give it another try if... The trouble is, the only person I've spoken to about it who doesn't think it's transphobic is Sean, and Sean was very... He wasn't willing to say it wasn't transphobic because he's I think he's questioning his memory of it, Yes,
I was there for that conversation, and he was very much like, "What scene do you feel there was transphobia in?" And then he didn't recall it.
Yeah,
existing. So it may have gotten under his radar entirely.
So yeah, if you have read it, is it?
It's going in the unhaul pile for now, but definitely if there's a good conversation in the comment time, I can be turned around.
Yep, that's what I'm suggesting. Now, this one is another one based on my opinion.
I think this one's going to get rescued.
Chronicles of a Blood Merchant.
I remember when you were partway through this, you were reviewing it and you were saying there's lots of domestic violence and I don't really understand the point. I feel like it might be a bit gratuitous. Was it gratuitous, or was there a point?
I do not feel like there was a point to the domestic violence in this novel. I do think, however, it was an accurate representation of the life in China at the time, and it may be a reflection of societal values and that.
I'm going to keep it. I'm just not as sensitive to domestic violence as I am to some of the other issues that we're talking about. Domestic violence is something that touched my childhood and I'm actually a bit hardened towards. I am not too stressed about reading a bit of domestic violence. I will think they're a douche if they've used it in certain ways, but I'm quite happy to read a book and then think the author is a douche.
I would be very interested in your opinion of this novel, so I definitely don't want to talk you out of it. I did not like the main character because of that scene, and do not feel that the intention of the author was to make you not like the main character.
Which is always funny. We don't want you to hate the main character, but let's have him beat his wife.
Yeah, I think... yeah, it was crazy. And the reason that he beat his wife was completely unfair and hypocritical. And, you know, and I just... And the author has gone to the point to make it hypocritical, so... Yeah,
that sounds potentially interesting to me. So, and the overall premise of the book is interesting to me.
Yeah, and it's allegorical for China under Mao Zedong.
Yeah.
And talking about that time
and being heavily censored and
the idea
having to be subversive and sneaky and like that. All that stuff is so interesting. Yeah, I'm willing to put up with a little bit of problematic for some things.
Yeah.
It's a balance, you know. Sometimes it's interesting enough.
The Yakubian building.
This is another one that's going into my test read pile because Scott just reckons it's got lots of male gazy, booby, titty descriptions. And I just want to see, again, it's about my own personal tolerance level. I suspect this will...
I mean, I just I'm a guy. I kind of like tits and legs and bums, right? And I found it offensive.
Yeah, so we'll see if we're the same or we're different.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting.
Guess what now?
This is the last one?
This is the last one. It's a fucking heavy one.
This got left at our house by some boy who wanted to date my cousin.
Right.
Do you remember that?
Nope.
It's not a book we chose. It's a book that sat on our bookshelf for literally, I think, about 7 or 8 years because some kid left it at our place. I didn't choose it. I don't care about it.
Tales of the Atari Trilogy.
It's on my TBR because it's a book in my house that I haven't read, but I don't actually care.
It looks like it's some sort of samurai thing. It's got samurai swords.
It also looks like it's been eaten by the dog. Like, it just...
Oh, it has been, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Jeez. Dust jackets, but look at that. Oh, whoops.
The dog's had a nibble.
He has.
It's
old enough to be either dog, but I think we know which one it is.
It's not actually in my wheelhouse of what I like to read, so I'm not going to read it.
Samurai drama sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's totally in somebody else's wheelhouse. That's completely fair. Like, people who like fantasy will like samurais and battles and all of that.
It's just not my thing.
Yeah.
So I've got 5 books that I'm going to test read, and I'll get back to you in a bit with my opinions.
Right, you've read your 5 books?
Well, I didn't read all of them, because I won't be reading any of them! It took me 2 pages to be disgusted in this. 2 pages.
2 pages?
It was... just... Dude.
Yeah, it's over the top, isn't it?
Yeah, calm your farm. Tits are not that exciting.
Yeah, like... I was happy to ignore it for a bit, but when it kept on doing it, that's when
I felt like the density in the first 2 pages of like sexual or sexualizing comments about women, if that continued at even half that density, it was just going to be a book that was completely ruined for me.
Yeah, unless they're like, I don't know, prostitutes or strippers. I mean, not that you should, but unless there's a reason to, like, just felt like there was no reason to do it. What about this one?
This is about Nazis.
Yeah, you like Nazis.
No. This is a story that sympathises with Nazis after the war.
What sort of Nazis?
Low-level Nazis. Like, Germans who fought in the Nazi army.
Okay, I'm going to be really controversial. Is there something wrong with that?
I am not interested in that.
Because I think that there's...
I'm not interested in the post... Like, we lost the war, yes, and therefore our life after the war is shit, yeah? That's an interesting story. not if you're on the side of a dictator, in my opinion. I'd rather read that story about a war where you're not on the side of a dictator.
But are the people ever on the side of the dictator? I mean, you can't say that all Germans were bad just because they happened to live in Germany under Hitler.
Having read the first few pages of this book, I've decided it will make me uncomfortable.
Okay.
Yeah. But basically, if I have the choice of reading a post-war narrative from the perspective of someone who was on the side of a dictator versus someone who was not on the side of the dictator, I know which one I'm going to pick, unless there's some kind of complexity to
I just think that anybody in a war is a victim unless they're a high-ranking scumbag. And then they're probably a high-ranking scumbag no matter which side they're on. Like, are you telling me that Churchill was a good guy because he wasn't?
No. But I am telling you that, like, the privileged white person losing some of their privileged status after being on the side of a war that exterminated a bunch of people, that's not an interesting story to me.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean... Anyway.
This offended me in 3 pages.
Wow, what did it do?
The premise of this is the wife project. The main character has Asperger's syndrome, so does my brother. My brother doesn't look at women as objects, and he does not believe that that they evaluate men as providers, and like we're in the animal kingdom and it's all about whether you're a fit mate, because he may have Asperger's, but he's not a misogynist. That's not the same thing.
Yeah, that sounds pretty offensive. I just want to say, I'm not a Nazi sympathiser.
I know you're not.
I'm not a Nazi sympathiser.
I was really, if anything, that was quite a surprising stance for you to take.
I am sympathetic of... I feel like I live in a racist country, and I don't...
You don't want to be put in that basket.
I want to do everything I can to help the people that our government abuses.
But does that mean that your story is interesting? No, it doesn't.
I mean, I don't really know what the rest of the book is, but I know that the people in Germany
it looks very much like a love story, and very much like it doesn't look like my thing anyway.
Yeah, I just okay, that's
Stop
fine.
arguing.
That's fine. I just don't want to look like I'm like some sort of Jew-hating arsehole. I'm not. Jews are awesome people, and Nazis are not. But I think there is some sort of empathy that you can have.
I read a couple of pages of this, and it didn't really grab me. And given the below 2-star average of the book club that we discussed earlier, I think that this is in the no pile.
Now, this is the one you thought about the most over.
This is the one I thought about the most. I skim read a massive chunk of this, looking for key fatphobic words, and then I went back and I watched Leanne's discussion of it again, and she didn't actually say that it was fatphobic. She said that it was body shaming. And what I noticed when I skim read it was a whole bunch of horrid male gazy power words and lots of just like the narrator is the doctor, and the way that he speaks about his patients is very incorrect. Like, you can't talk about your patients like that.
Is it somehow a critique of... I mean, it sounds like it's a thriller, so it probably isn't. But
he's supposed to be, according to Leanne, he's an unreliable narrator. It's a thriller. Potentially, he is not supposed to be a very good character, but Leanne said she couldn't get away from the fact that it was clearly the thoughts of the author on the page. It was clearly the expressions that were used to describe women's bodies were clearly the author's expressions. And that is exactly the kind of writing that I'm not interested in. And I will read a thriller, but thrillers aren't very high on my list of priorities. So I was interested in this because of the silence of the silent patient, the non-verbal nature of people interests me, especially when it's transient. I have had some personal experience with people who have become non-verbal or been for a period of time non-verbal, and it's people's perceptions of it and interactions with it are very interesting to me. But that's not what this is about. This is about a man manipulating a woman. That's my opinion. And I'm not going to read it.
Fair enough.
So, yeah.
So you've gotten rid of a few books. Let's quickly count them up.
Ooh.
1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
I got 9 up here.
17 and 9 is 26. And then those Stephen King books, how many of them? There were 7?
Yeah, I think so.
So what did I say?
26.
Plus 7 is 33, 35.
Wow, so that brings me down to 235 instead of 270.
All right.
Yeah, it's a good unhaul. Bye!